Let's see if I can get Spotify going properly here, because we gotta have some tunes for this. Bum bum. Where are you, Spotify? There you are. And let's see if you'll connect. This no fun. Wonder why the application capture isn't working there. Let's turn that off and add something else here. Okay, and then sorry if that blasted your ears by accident. I have this turned way down. Just trying to make a nice, okay, I guess that's not happening today. Instead, we'll just have the nice calming background music happening. Which is kind of at odds with what we're doing with the thumbnail. But I tell you, I was kind of inspired. But yeah, I love the series Tinga Topic Gurren Lagann, and one of the things that I just loved about it was the eye catches that they had for the series just throughout the show. They would have these like intermission screens coming up between pretty significant segments of a show, and so that's what I based this thumbnail on. I did not post a going live tweet yet, so I need to do that. And we'll retreat. And that's handled. All right, back in action. Okay, so I just wanted to have a little bit of fun with it, and I thought what better than to do a little clickbait. But the theme of today's video is gonna be, well, the theme of today's stream, I guess, will be designing food dishes based on Pokemon, and I imagine that I will probably have time to do one from beginning to end, and so I'm doing Bulbasaur for this one. Now I gotta tell you, I have the Tri-City Con coming up this weekend, and so I'm trying to not add too much to my plate at the last minute. And I was a very responsible vendor and got a small batch of my stickers already printed, laminated, cut out, put away into the tote bags, the tote bins, that's a word. The tote bins I'm gonna be taking to the show, and I've been trying to do more events where I drive to the location as opposed to fly there. And it's kind of nice in a way because I don't have to worry too much about getting Ubers, having to be at the airport at a certain time. I can listen to my audiobooks. It's always a plus. I actually have to start a new series this weekend. I'm not sure what it will be, but I'm always looking for recommendations on like quality. I want to say like fiction audiobooks in particular. And I have been using Dungeon Crawler Carl as my road trip audio for a while. And I actually made it all the way to the end of book 7. So I just have to wait until May, I think it is, for the next book to come out. Yeah, I'm anticipating that a lot. But yeah, I can't keep listening to that for now. I have to listen to something else. My thought is something like You Fights with Monsters, or Dungeon Core, something like that. I've been kind of enjoying the lit RPG series, like genre, that's a word. But yeah, if you have any recommendations, I would love to hear them for the road trips. See, but yeah, if I have extra time this week in between doing everything, what I'm looking to do is actually make a couple more small prints, and that's what one of the items for today's stream is about, is making the content for that that print. And so if you squinted really hard, you could actually make out the sketch that I started on for this project. But I wanted to start from the top of the design process for the purpose of this stream and the resultant pod. So I hope you all will enjoy that. For now, let's switch over to the Blender, because I have my references and such over there. Alrighty. So as you can see, there is a very delicious burger on the screen. And if you were following me on Twitter or Blue Sky or any of the other platforms I'm on, you may have seen this. And this is another print that I was working on for Tri-City Con, and the stamp rally that I'm involved in is a alien / cryptid theme to it. So this is what I'm calling the abduction burger. And just taking a little ziggy here before I jump into the Bulbasaur design. So what I have here is like a pretzel bun, and what I did with that was just experiment a little bit with the cutting style. Typically with pretzel buns, you are cutting like a cross shape into the top. But I thought, why limit yourself to that? You could do so much more. And I came up with this idea of drawing a circle around the base of the bun, and then drawing a hexagon pattern for the cockpit of the alien UFO. And keep in mind, I do plan to turn all of these into actual recipes at some point. I want to make a cookbook for 20. But yeah, do look forward to that. For here, I have goat cheese crumbles and a couple of slices of crispy fried onions. And this is pretty simple. I just use a very basic plane with alpha transparency on it, so you can see how it breaks up, but the overall shape is very simple. And I'm relying a little bit on post-production just to enhance things a little bit. But that's a wonderful thing about doing all of this in Blender, is you just got plenty of room to experiment and move things around, see what happens. And then this weird alien goo. I have been seeing and sampling a lot of burgers these days with some kind of fruit on it. I have seen like blackcurrant, grape, strawberry, a couple of others, but yeah, sweet and savory isn't like a completely novel, a novel flavor combination. But I thought, well, if I can do that with like dark jellies, red jellies, why couldn't I do it with the green jelly? And that's where this idea came from. There is like a key lime jelly that you can make, and I was thinking you could also add a little bit of jalapeno in, so it's kind of like a chutney, and that would just be really delicious. So I want to make it for real and see what it's like. But it's an excellent source of the green, like weird green glow to the dish. Then I get the classic smash patties here, coming in clutch again. And then we got this bacon, which I also posted a separate tweet about. But I have fun making this. It is also very simple overall. I just started off with a cube and then stretched it out, subdivided it, and then just messed around with the shape to get the natural like waviness to crispy bacon. And then I just duplicated that over, moved some stuff around, adjusted the vertices. Then we got a pretzel bottom bun as well. So plenty of options for the future. So that's the abduction burger. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that does for the convention this weekend. I'm hoping to finally sell through something, which would be a first for the conventions I have been seriously trying with the food concept so far. But anyway, end up yapping about that. Get that out of here. Let's take a quick look at this design. So we got Bulbasaur. The idea that I had was going back to the original 151 Pokemon and doing a whole collection of the 151 Pokemon, and probably throw in missing number later, just as a little fun thing, because you could do like the weird scrambling texture with spun sugar, well, this drizzled sugar, streaks of other ingredients. It would essentially be candy. And if you ever watch those Korean like YouTube clips about making hard candy, you kind of get the idea where I'm going with this. But that's a topic for much later in the future. I got 151 Pokemon to go through first. And so why not just start from a very beginning and see where we can go with this. As for the design process, it all begins with observation. Cute guy. I heard a lot about it, Bulbasaur from Pokobia. I think that's how you pronounce it. But the new game where you play as Ditto, and Bulbasaur is like this Gyaru type, very, very cute. I've been seeing the Ginchika designs all over Twitter for Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, and Venusaur. Apparently, Venusaur is like the mommy type. Oh boy. But yeah, it's been fun just seeing the overall like reaction and the resurgence of Ginchika designs. So I thought, why not capitalize a little bit on that and start the project off with Bulbasaur? Alrighty, observations. So we got this big bulb on the back that is a pretty big like character point that we should make sure we incorporate with the overall design. And then we got the green body. It's kind of a minty green, but I tell you, I'm not really feeling like doing yet another dessert. I've been trying to be real balanced when it comes to making all these different dishes, because it is super easy to just go the desserts bakery route when it comes to making themed food or drinks. And so I want my quote-unquote restaurant to be full of savory food and sweet food, sour, bitter, etc. But just have a lot of variety. And so I'm gonna try to pin this as something savory. With this savory context and Bulbasaur as a whole, I'm thinking herbal. So what this could be here, this bun, rather than trying to do something like matcha dumplings or, you know, matcha whatever. It's a little played out for me personally, but this could be a great like herb bundle. And I've seen this a little bit at restaurants where sometimes when they're serving you essentially a salad on the plate, like real high end, they will just do like a fancy little bundle and tie it up. So you could play it with the shape of a bundle a little bit here. and get this idea through. And then over here we got the body. Now, a big thing I'm trying to do with most of these recipes is, you know, not make it like you have to cut into the Pokemon and whatnot. Or, you know, a cat, the dog, the animal, essentially. And so I'm aiming for either it's eaten with one bite, or it has enough to hint at the idea without it being the idea. And I think that's what I need to do here, is the hint at the idea. So what could we do with green? The little triangles here make me think of pepper. Like the little chopped bits of pepper that you might find in different dishes. Gotta hydrate. Been talking for almost 20 minutes straight. Good stuff. Little flakes of peppers that you might find in other dishes. And you could do bell peppers. And I know just a thing. Stuffed bell peppers. So we could do a stuffed bell pepper for the body, and then include the herb bundle as a additional like accessory element to the dish. And how do we express the face on there? How do we express the overall shape and form? I think I don't want to give 2 bell peppers, because typically when I make stuffed bell peppers, I usually just eat one at a time. So it either has to be a dish made for sharing, which is not the goal of my cookbooks, is for one person to be able to cook the whole plethora of different dishes inspired by their favorite characters or their favorite shows. So that's what I'm gonna do, is I'll do a stuffed bell pepper for the body, and then since we're gonna be stuffing it, we could put beef in, or steak, and then cover the top with cheese. That would be really tasty, and also give us an extra opportunity to add little flakes on the top to represent that. And then, because we'll have beef or steak in there, I could introduce something that I really, really love with meat, is chimichurri. And I'll dress up the plate as a whole, and you can also do a couple of extra things with the dish itself to highlight the appearance and just kind of fill out the plate. So I'm just gonna switch back to Clip Studio Paint for a second here and show you the sketch that I came up with earlier. So we will finally remove a mosaic. Oh no! Da, da, da. Get all of this taken out. And this is the idea that I came up with. I actually, since I did this initial sketch, I will add another thing because I can. Um, so over here with the eyes, I might just do mozzarella. So look at a slice of mozzarella. And then lay a grape tomato on top. And then another little piece of mozzarella on top. That way it gives the eye shape. Then this would be the herb bundle. This would be the bell pepper. We got the cheese. And then this would be the chimichurri. So yeah, just a combination of using the actual food itself and then the decorative elements on the plate to give birth to the overall idea. So now that we have that in mind, let's go ahead with the process of making it. Alrighty, switch back to Blender over here. And then I'm just gonna take a quick screenshot of Whip Studio Paint so I have it off to the side here. Okay. And this will be off screen for you guys, but I'll have it still as reference. So hope y'all are enjoying the stream so far, and as always, leave a comment, or if you're in the live stream, you're welcome to chat. And we'll just get started over here. And let's see. Oh, this is the one that I want. Here we are. Okay. I actually don't think we need this extra window here. So I'll just simplify. Shrink this down a little bit. It should be ready to get started. Let's get started with a simple element just to kind of warm up a little bit. Let's make the eyes. So we will need a cylinder here. That shrunk down. Like so. And then X-ray mode. And cut those out. Now we got a semicircle. See. Alrighty. Then just quickly check on Bulbasaur itself. I should have kept that extra window. That's the unfortunate thing about keeping Blender files open for too long, especially when you're a fan of making a bunch of different items in the same file and using reference file images for it. After a while, you just have a whole bunch of these hanging around that makes it harder to find the files you're looking for later. That out a little bit, and of course we can wiggle around with the mozzarella slices so we can get that shape. And see here, go ahead and get my UV mapping going while I can. And I'll just add a couple here. And then triangulate bases. This is just my way of making it easy to connect these, because the cylinder didn't have the cuts in them on this base, so this is just a quick and easy way to connect those if you need the extra structure on this side at a later time. So yeah, that's another important thing about just doing this in general, is you want there to be a degree of chaos with the overall shape, because nothing is perfectly flat or perfectly sharp when it comes to food. And so the sooner you're able to introduce a little bit of variation, that makes things a lot easier in the post-processing. Also makes it very believable. And then just add a couple of cuts here. Well, all right, that should be ready, but I'm not gonna go back to it for painting until later. Then for like a cherry tomato, we have a kind of a egg shape. So I guess the best analogy there would be a UV sphere. And I'm gonna simplify this a bit. So make that 8 instead of 32. And then stretch this guy out some. And then since it's going to be a grape tomato with it that's been halved, I'll just cut through here. Perfect. And we'll make a base out of that. And of course, triangulate it. That should be good enough for the grape tomato itself. This into position. And then just promote a little bit of reuse. I'll just go ahead and set a material here. Oops. So now if you take it all together, you can kind of see how it mimics the shape that I'm after. Beautiful. Add a material here as well. I'm gonna make this red so it matches the design over here. I'm just gonna pull this in. Try to be a little bit more organized. um yeah. Okay, we got the eye, we got the herb bundle, we got the stuffed bell pepper. For the bell pepper, the type that I usually get have 4 lobes to them. So its cylinder would work just fine for that purpose. So okay, that should be good. And I'll just add another cut right here because this is gonna be um two different materials, not blender materials, but like food materials, I guess. Just trying to make a distinction because on the outside here, you're gonna have the more solid green, with a little bit of watering to it from being cooked. And then you're gonna have the inside part where it's been cut with the knife. That's gonna be a pretty light color, usually almost white. And then for this inner part, I'm gonna be a little bit simplistic because most of this is not gonna be visible to begin with. So I need to more or less imply what's there. If we modify the cheese on the top to expose a little bit of it. So just having all of that prepared ahead of time is valuable. And for the cheese, gonna be real simple and lazy here. Use a plane for that. And I think I'll just keep it as is. But make sure that I get the material assigned for it. Cheese. Cover, I guess. And I will actually give it some dimension because the dimension here is actually going to be somewhat visible. Beautiful. We got that. We got the mozzarella slices. Can make the chimichurri sauce later. Next, I should say. For this one, I'm gonna try to use a path just to get the drizzle of that on there. Adjust the shape a little bit. Gonna do a top-down view. Get the approximate velocity that I want. Alrighty. Then this segment also needs a subdivide. Alrighty. So just X-ray mode just to show you how it's all coming together. We'll probably be observing it at this kind of angle. So we can just lift the center up. minus this one right here. Now, you see there's kind of a problem with that. They're all lifted up like this. So let's subdivide this further. Alrighty. And this down here, these. Now you can kind of see how it's starting to feel just a little bit more natural. Alrighty, that's starting to look decent. Let's tighten this up a little bit. Yeah. Over. Was not clipping. Alright. A quick save for my sanity. See how this looks in perspective. look at the here. Alrighty. We'll just add another. And then got kind of a little beak going on here. Can kind of see the shape coming together. And for the herb bundle, this one might be a little bit difficult from a modeling perspective. There's a certain level of detail that you want, but at the same time, if you do too much detail, then it becomes a problem. So what I would usually do in a scenario like this is just break it down into primitives. So the body of it is very like garlic shaped, and we can do that with a simple cylinder. And let's say 6 lobes. Thinking about the best way to do this. Okay, another one of those bots. And goodbye. It's always a little bit annoying sometimes just having the bots show up and think that's what you need. Just need to buy into our scam and you'll be happy. Yay! No, absolutely not. My train of thought. 6 doesn't evenly divide into 32. So we should do it every 8 instead, maybe. Yeah, that should be pretty good. And then for the bottom, bring it up and balloon this out a little bit. And bring this together. Subdivide that a little bit. And then another ring here. Ooh, that's looking beautiful already. And then this is the part that I always question myself when I'm making some of these more complicated elements. And it's just a matter of, do I really want to invest the time and effort to model it out, or do I just keep it simple and do it in post processing? And I think that's my answer. Keep it simple. Because otherwise I have to model the little spikes on top, where that could be just like a second or two per spike with the brushes and Clip Studio Paint. So I'm not going to worry myself too much about it. Get some UV action happening. A small tip for the UV unwrapping process. These areas right here in between like major changes to the geometry, those are where I usually like to put the seams, just to make it easier to accurately texture paint still, because along these seams it's usually a little bit darker, so you don't really notice the overlaps too much from your texture. But that looks pretty good right there. Then I was thinking I would do this string, but that might again just be too much detail to be worth the calories. And I'm gonna adjust the level, so to speak. Yeah, there we go. It's a little bundle right here. It'll mostly be like microgreens. I'm thinking personally a little bit of rosemary, maybe a little bit of thyme. So I think that is an excellent start to this whole concept. And we are an hour and 5 minutes in. Let's see here. My mug still has a little bit of water in it. So once it runs out, then I'll end the stream. But we got a little time left together. Alrighty. Shading. Now you might be asking, well, why don't you make the why don't you make the leaves and whatnot coming out of it at the top? And that would be an excellent question. However, the overall surface of this is small. So that's just another like overall optimization question. Like, how much time do you invest in making the actual mesh versus post? And this one, we got the overall surface of the dish. This little part right here represents maybe 1 to 2% of the overall design in terms of canvas space. So I don't think it's gonna do a whole lot of good to overinvest the time. At that. Gotta make sure outfits in there as well. And outfit blend done. Gonna just make sure I have normals recalculated. That's something that trips me up a lot when it comes to making textures is the normals just don't get placed the right way because of how I modeled the faces and whatnot. So I just try to add in that process to make sure everything will paint properly. Okay, that's the bell pepper. This one's gonna be a little bit weird, because I'm using a path to make the overall design, and so it doesn't have like a, how do I say, a like a real firm texture map to it, and I don't want to, especially if it's gonna be long like this and shorter like this, maybe a couple of additional similar elements in there. So I'm just gonna keep it simple and then see how much work we need to do with the actual texture itself. Alright. That is all covered there. Now, what do I feel like working on? I gotta do UVs. Oh, joy. Gotta make sure the texture map looks alright for these. Alright, that looks decent. And this is just gonna be a flat. Yeah. Then this. Did I unwrap that one? And this. Unwrap that one as well. And that should cover everything. Now we can get to texture painting. I do not have a reference for the mozzarella slices or the cherry tomatoes. That should be pretty good, I think. Yeah. Two birds, one stone. Okay. I was watching a video the other day and I thought it was pretty informative. The overall gist of the video was that when you're trying to paint food, you should just try to stick your color palette for each quote unquote material of the thing that you're trying to paint up to 3 different colors. So in this case, 2 or 3 is good because we got the overall body of the slice, we got the shadow, and because this is so white overall, it doesn't really need highlights at this point in time, but we could add in the highlights here as our third color. And then when you go into like further rendering the pieces, then that's when you can start adding more colors. But just for like the sake of your sanity, when you're making the initial blockouts of these shapes, keeping a very limited color palette will help make meaningful progress. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do here. Take the fill tool and sample the main color upper body. Just kind of that creamy off-white. And then use my big grunge for the darker shadow portion. Then I'll just take the highlight here. Just real subtle, but it helps with getting the feel of it right. And then I'm gonna add in some of these extra little flecks. And I'll use a hard round for it. This one maybe use a soft 4. I really ought to change the brush color. That's a thing that annoys me sometimes. I like magenta. Makes it a lot more visible. Especially again on some of these. That's under cursor right here. A little bit of the green. I like doing the little detail work like this sometimes just because I don't have to be real precise. I can just do a little bit of squiggly and then just let my own natural jitteriness help me make something that looks pretty decent. Alrighty, that's looking pretty good. Then where the tomato is. I do actually have a tomato slice already. So maybe I could just reuse this. Do I have cherry tomatoes in here? Oh, this is the yellow. It is not in the right format anyway, so that wouldn't help me. Yeah, nah. I'm good. I'll just make a better one. Okay, cherry tomatoes. And fill with the primary color of the shell, not the cut. Add some pepper to it as well. A little pepper. And a little bit of salt. And eat a little bit with the highlights. Then flip it over to the other side for if we ever need to use this. Actually, use a grunge for this. Mm. And another round of the grunge, just to give a bit of a core. That's looking pretty solid. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Leave that image as well. Let's do the chimichurri. This one should probably be amusing. Yeah, I can find it. Nope. Nope. Yes. Okay. Okay. Seems like you can't actually work on these without converting it to a mesh. So I'm just gonna do that. Alrighty. Get the main color there. Boom. Then grunge. Gonna use this color right here. And counter that again with a little bit of the dark. And I can see that it's getting cut off a little bit there. So I gotta also color around. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I usually like to do my textures is linked materials, and sometimes just let them be weird in their own ways, because it just makes them more interesting that way. Mm. Just kind of gotta trust the process and hope for a good result of it. And doing highlights is probably going to be a post-production. But yeah, you can kind of see how like the texture gets all stretched out here. But that's we'll balance it out kind of deal. Then see if we got the peppers in here. Hydrate. Crunch, my friend. Going real big overall texture. Guess I'll be layering it up anyway. And counter that a little bit. Ready. And then add a little bit of this to the rim. And we got a little bit of variation. or groups. Alrighty. Then we want a little bit of puckering up here. And add some shape to the center. Just letting the chaos take over here. And a little bit of darkness. Ho, 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 ho. just kind of looking at it from this distance. Looks pretty good to me. Let's just darken it up a tiny bit. And big old softy. Neo soft. All right. That's looking pretty good in context. Let's add a little bit of extra to it. Because we can. That's a big part of like super realistic food rendering, is just embracing the little imperfections. Just seeing these little things make it think, wow, an artist really went out of their way to make this as realistic as possible. And then you can pretty much just hide some of the other details, like I hear this often. A joke is that you'll be asking somebody what they focused on and like how detailed you feel like the piece is, and then then you ask, did you notice she was wearing shoes or not? Just because like the feet on the painting are just like messy, sketchy blobs, as opposed to, fully rendered and thought out pieces. That's because the details are going where it needs to be going. Alrighty. I am just about out of water here, but I think this is fantastic overall progress. Just gonna hide this for a second here. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I'll just keep working on it and then see where I get in the next day or two before I have to drive all the way out to Grand Island for the convention. But thank you all for hanging out, and hope you have a great rest of your evening.